Welcome to the podcast number 6. Our guest today is the first non-Asian on the podcast, and I'm very happy and excited. The focus of the podcast is still on Pakistan and Pakistan's ecosystem, but Gary Theis is relevant to the Pakistan ecosystem for many reasons. One being that their company Wego is starting their office in Lahore, and also because they've had many Pakistani engineers over the years, including Hassan Nabidar and others. We will talk about it. Gary Theis was born and raised in US, and around 2 decades ago he moved to Singapore, and he's done a lot of companies and startups in the engineering teams in Singapore. Mostly lately he's been working as the chief technology officer of a lot of companies. He was the first hire at Wego, a travel booking website which is competitor to Expedia and TripAdvisor. And then he went on to work on other companies like Zumata and other companies in Singapore. And lately he's been sort of rejoined the Wego as chief technology officer. So with that introduction, I welcome my guests. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Amir. I really appreciate the opportunity to sort of talk about what we're doing. And I love the format of the podcast you've got here. And I hope you get the chance to interview Hassan later, he's a brilliant engineer.
The player is all mine. And I'm really happy and excited to talk about your company, your work, your special insights about managing engineering teams and large-scale projects. And in that sense, this will be the first podcast where we dive deeply into engineering problems. And let's get started. Wego, I've heard definitely you guys are moving to Pakistan. You're opening an office in Pakistan, right? The first
Correct.
question on my mind is that with COVID and everything, the traveling market and the hoteling market it looks to be shrinking a little bit. And in those times you are expanding, so it's sort of counterintuitive to me. So is that a expansion or a relocation?
Okay, so it's definitely expansion, and you are absolutely right. I mean, travel has just been crushed by the COVID situation, as everyone would expect. So what's happened, and the counterintuitive bit is that while a lot of our competition was opting to shrink back, cut all their costs, and just sort of go into hiding, we wanted to preserve our market share. So we didn't want to cut back. We wanted to make sure that we would come out on the other side of this as strong or stronger than we were. And so the piece of this that is an expansion is that we're obviously looking for more superior engineering, and Pakistan is sort of our latest venture to do that.
And you have the option of opening an office anywhere in the world. What
Yes.
was you looking at, and how did your search landed you into Pakistan?
Okay, it was kind of a fortunate event, really. So we are, as you mentioned, there are a lot of places we could go. There are a lot of places we already are. We're in Singapore, Dubai, KL, Jakarta, Bangalore, Egypt, and so now Lahore. So Lahore actually came about because as you mentioned, we actually have a number of Pakistani engineers working for us in Singapore, and we happen to have had some interest in this whole COVID situation of remote work. Somebody wanted to go back, spend a significant amount of time there, and it just came about that from discussions that, hey, we're having trouble with recruiting, and people there, and we know there are qualified, very talented people working there. Why don't you open an office? So as one of our senior fellows, and he's extremely competent to do that. So yeah, that's exactly how it happened. It's not how you would have expected, but it seems to be working. The networks of people that are great, and we're finding opportunities for freshers and things like that are difficult to get in other places. Lahore is a great place compared to a lot of our other places. I mean, Singapore, too expensive. It's very difficult to get employment passes now. KL, COVID situation, not real great. Also difficult to hire good people. Bangalore, competition is just, incredible there. And in Dubai, it's hard to get talent in Dubai. So Pakistan kind of ticks the boxes for available talent, affordable folks. Excellent talent, actually.
I'm so happy to hear all of this, that it's happening. And just I'm sure you know that in 2020 Pakistan's software exports have doubled.
I completely believe it. Yes,
definitely there's a lot is happening in Pakistan, and especially Lahore and other cities. But one further question on this. Pakistan has a lot of cities: Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi. Why didn't you opt for Karachi or other cities? Why Lahore?
Right. So our engineering team primarily is from Lahore or Karachi, and the folks in question who were going to go back and spend some serious time here were from Lahore. So it happens to just line up really well that way. And Lahore seems to be a real hotbed of activity, so works for us.
Yeah, makes sense. And is your hope? When are you launching? When are you starting your operations here? And have you chosen a place in Lahore? Talk a little about that.
Yes, absolutely. We're actually pretty advanced. The guys have retained an office, so it's I think it's over at Sadiq Train Center.
Okay. So very close to where I'm sitting, right? Very close to where I'm sitting right now. It's I'm sitting in the Gulberg as well. That's it's downtown main commercial hub of Lahore. So yeah.
And the idea is we want to get this is kind of the first is the pilot office, for we're looking for like 10 to 12 people roughly. The intention is to start looking for something bigger fairly soon, because I have a feeling we'll probably fill that up quickly. But anyway, they've already retained the office. They're in the process of renovation right now, going through. Also, we're in the process of incorporating the company there. And really, we're about to make the first offers for the first employees there beyond the fellow who's relocated there directly to be the leader there.
So what are the talents that you will be hiring? Talk a little about that, because the people who are listening, for them, will it be engineering? Will it be sales? Will it be customer support, marketing? Yeah.
Okay. So to start, it's more of an engineering R&D center. And so we're gonna start with back end, front end, full stack, mobile engineers, that sort of thing, and probably a pipeline of fresh grads to work in engineering roles as well. We want to have a whole mentorship pipeline through what we do. Now, I think the other roles would be something like at some point, and I think this may come sooner than we expect. Pakistan is also a ripe market for travel, as we see it. And so, doing what we did in Bangalore and some of the other offices where we're actually also pushing a commercial office would mean that other roles would come along, like marketing and finance and things like that. That would be on a later time scale, but there's some interesting plans in the works that we may be doing that on the sooner side.
Okay.
But the Wego careers page is a good place to go. The Lahore, JD's job descriptions are up on the Wego careers page if people are interested in applying.
Okay, I will link it in the video description, and I'll put it on the screen as well. You mentioned it's becoming difficult to hire engineering talent in Singapore, in Kuala Lumpur, in Dubai, and all that. Why is that? Talk about the high-level insights and what are the learning points for people regarding that. Okay.
So Singapore is a bit of a complex situation in that the local engineering talent pool is small, and it's going to take many years before it's going to satisfy all the companies there. And with the recent influx of many big Chinese companies trying to relocate so that it's not directly coming from China, the whole U.S. situation, the politics there has made that a little bit of a liability. Singapore is extremely difficult to hire in now. So Bangalore, the complexities, they're closer to where you guys are in that part of the world. Bangalore is also a lot of big companies are in there, making it difficult. I mean, it all comes down to oftentimes, what's the name of your company? Unless it's a Google or a Facebook or big, it's quite difficult to pull people away. KL talent pool problems. It's difficult to find people there. They're also pretty well taken up. Indonesia is also a big fight. It's it's tricky everywhere. So it's kind of nice to get into a market that feels a little more nascent. Even the talent is very good there, but they often travel to other places to get jobs. I'd like to go there and give them an opportunity.
I understand. Lahore, you will have plenty of opportunity to get raw talent from here.
Yeah.
In terms of numbers and people who are eager to, eager to contribute. But you will have to, train them. And on that,
Yes.
My question is, do you believe in nature or do you believe in nurture? Sort of, what's your philosophy on training engineering team? Do you think that, it's part of people's nature, or is it something that is trainable and you can hire people and then train them on the team? What's your philosophy and your experience on this?
Sure, it's really a mix of the two. So I've seen that pipelines of I call it pipelines, as I don't want to boil people down to like resources, but to have freshers come in, train them up, and have them move on to greater and greater roles in the company is something we really believe in. It's something we've done with the Bangalore team all along. And it's not just that we silo certain projects in one location. We want them to join all the different teams. So the kind of people we're bringing on board in Lahore are actually ones who have mentored some of these guys themselves. So we're a big believer in setting up that kind of an operation there. I think there's also, there's obviously an element of nature as well. And I've seen that because some of the best engineers I've ever seen have switched roles in midlife. Lawyers or, mechanical engineers or something like that. And I've seen, it's obviously they've taken the leap to switch over to an entirely different discipline, but it's something they love. Whereas, computer science is one of those disciplines where there are a lot of people in computer science who went into it because they felt like it'd be easy to get a job, but it's not something they love. So I like to see there's a nature and nurture that really contributes to the best engineers.
Okay, so now I want to talk about your company, Wego. It's to me, it looks like a huge engineering challenge running a company like that. Obviously there's a lot of commercial sales and strategy there as well, but you need an efficient, fast, reliable engineering product to run a travel website like Wego.
Yes.
In terms of challenges, in terms of how is running a company like that unique compared to running other type of companies like social media, other type of products, and how do you manage so many APIs? I'm sure you are getting the data of those banks and all of that, through a lot of APIs, and how do you manage that puzzle? Is it is it like through evolution that you understand this market? Talk about the inherent challenges in running a product like yours.
Okay, so you're quite right. It's we're not gigantic, but we're upward, approaching around 200 people, and a fairly decent percentage of that is engineering team. And we're spread across something like 5 different offices. So there's that as well. I think the key is that we keep ourselves relatively flat for a company. I prefer to run at least engineering parts of Wego much like a startup. I come from a very startup-oriented background, and I feel like we look at our competitors who are an order of magnitude or two larger than we are in terms of engineering staff, and I look at what they accomplish with that team, and I look at what we've accomplished with a far smaller team, and I start wondering to myself, where do you lose control? Where did the team of 100 people stop being able to do 10 times the work of the 10-man team? And so that's why I try to keep it flat. I try and make sure the leads, the VPs of engineering are are talented professionals who know how to mentor their teams, empower their leads to be able to get things done. And it's all a matter of, I think, just management and really good people. You need to have people you can trust, and to run with the ball when you hand it to them. As far as technologies that help us, of course, we use the same things. It's agile methodologies. We use Confluence for documentation, Jira, many things you've probably heard before to keep things running. The project management teams and the product owners are brilliant as well. It's just a relatively really well organized team.
Okay.
KPIs. Go right ahead. Yeah.
No. Please continue. Please continue.
No, I mean, you were mentioning like KPIs. Of course, the
no KPIs. No. I said APIs.
Not KPIs. Oh, the API. Yeah. I mean, we of course we have tons of microservices and APIs across our company that help keep everything, modular.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, one question about APIs. Is that, do you write all these APIs, or all these hotels and other intermediary companies that you use, do they have made a lot of APIs themselves as well? The reason I'm asking this question is that when I go to your app and I search, for a microsecond, it shows me logos of a lot of companies, and it make it seem like it's searching from all these databases. So, is the responsibility of writing all these APIs on Wego, or other partners are also writing those APIs?
Yeah, so it's APIs all the way down. When what we do at Wego as a marketplace is when you call us, of course we hit our backends, and then our backends call the APIs of all the suppliers we have. And so that could be hundreds. And then there's an aggregation of all that. So yeah, we deal with APIs on a really epic scale, actually. Some of them we write, but we're consuming a lot of outside APIs from suppliers.
And to me, it's very interesting that you managed to run searches on these hundreds of APIs and still return your result in microseconds. I mean, I've been searching your app, over the last few weeks, and different times of the day, and through different devices. Every time the answer is, even to me, it looked even faster than Google. I mean, it was this fast. I mean, so what's the magic of doing that? And, and how critical is that, if, for example, a lot of other companies will have a really tough time returning research in those microseconds? Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent, you're a little bit hamstrung by how fast the APIs of your suppliers are, but we strive to absolutely minimize any of the time that we take in that aggregation and returning it to the user. Also, there's a fair amount of caching involved when you're talking about, we make extensive use of Cloudflare technologies to cache a lot of things as close as we can to the user, auto suggests and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's quite an undertaking to get systems to call these hundreds of APIs, get them back, get them aggregated, get the price sorted, and return them to the user quickly. That's been an issue since the very beginning, back when there weren't APIs available. When I first started in this, half the stuff we did, you had to scrape the website, and I'll tell you that's dead slow.
Definitely. And I will talk about a bit of your past projects as well, but I want to talk a little about stay on Wego for a while. Sure. Yeah. So Wego, Wego has a lot of competitors, Expedia, TripAdvisors, and there must be a lot of others. And what are the key areas? What are the key geographies that Wego is dominant in? And what are the sort of your unique contribution to the traveling world? What are the things that you are best at? Right.
So Wego's actually primary markets, the MENA region, the Middle East. We have become a very large player there. In spite of us starting in Southeast Asia, and it took us a few years to find our footings. We went through Indonesia, we went through Singapore, we went through India at points, and we're still in those countries. But we really found our success when we went into the mobile market in the Middle East. And now we're very large, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, that area. And we're looking to expand all around that region and into North Africa and places like that. Our unique selling point there is that when we went into these places, they were really an afterthought for the big guys. There is a lot of localization you have to do, a lot of internationalization. There are a lot of unique things, Hajj and all these things that you want to build for, you want to support in your marketing efforts and partnerships with the local online travel agencies and things like that. This was something we laser focused on, and we have a team, marketing and commercial in Dubai, who works on that specifically. So I think the real key here is we treat it as our first market. It's our most important market, and we do everything we can to make it as good of an experience for those guys as possible. And I still think for most of the big guys, again, it's one more market for them. We've even collaborated with some of them to help them figure out things like for example, we did a Farsi calendar a while back. Nobody had ever. Yeah, it was a really interesting undertaking for a very specific project we were doing, and that was something that just sort of blew the competitor we were working with away. They're like, "Wow, you really built that specifically for this," and they had a much larger team, and we're discussing how they would go about something like this. We said, you just need to focus on this and make it your priority. Right to left. It's something a lot of their engines haven't been built for. They were all very US centric or Europe centric. You have to consider it first.
I agree with you on that. I think that the 21st century, like they say, belongs to Asia. A lot of these startups, a lot of these services will be customized and made native to these regions like, Pakistan, India. This region has been underserved by the last few decades of technology, and I think a lot of growth will come from Asia and in Middle East region, and definitely sometime in the future, Africa as well. And definitely the people who will have deep expertise in working with the local cultures, will have an edge. And I think sooner or later, all these companies from the Europe and North America will realize that, they are a little behind in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we want it so that when they finally figure that out, we're already, dominant there. That would be part of the plan. And so we have a very large market share in that part of the world. It's funny when I'm in Singapore, I hear about us very rarely, but I visited the Dubai office and it was like, wow, we're on a taxi. It's kind of nice to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I want the world to pay attention that when I say, Pakistan, the exports are double, the software exports are double. And, in the last 3 years, we added 30 million more smartphone users. It's going to be a huge market. And the income levels are up with the technology, technology knowledge and expertise are up, and all these people are going to need products and services. It's happening all around this region, and so in that sense, it's a market that will pay dividend to the people who will be get inside and get that groundwork and get to know the region and its own specialities, and will do their R&D and have their offices here. So definitely you have that advantage, and I can see that. I mean, let's talk a little about, the other day, last few days, there was a discussion going on in LinkedIn, and the topic was, should the companies rehire their people once they've left, Right. And I sort of took part in that discussion. And you are a guy who was one of the first hires at Wego, and then you left, and then you came back. You came back, and you came back stronger than before. You were hired as the CTO, and
Yes.
And talk about that experience. That and talk about also that should companies be, is there an advantage to rehire a person who already know you, and what are the pros and cons that you think are there?
Right, right. Well, yeah, coming back, you're quite right. I felt like I brought more to the company because I had spent time at, 3 or 4 different startups in the interim. And I had learned a lot. It had been a great experience. And there were some very specific things in the hotel booking space that I simply didn't know until I went to those startups and built it from scratch with some other really right folks. And so I brought back to the table that sort of thing. I've also found that, rehiring people leave for different reasons. It could be that they had an offer they couldn't refuse from a top tier company or something like that. Or, it was just time, to come and try new things. Wego's rehired a lot of people. Just in the last couple of years I've been there, 3 or 4 different people in engineering, including we just hired a new senior VP of engineering who was a previous Wego CTO at one point. And you know what you're getting. These people were bright when they were working for the company, and now they're experienced and bright. So it's hard to go wrong. I mean, and if they're not the kind of person you want to hire, you just don't rehire them. So I think it's
so how important is it that when you left, under what circumstances and under what terms did you leave the company? Because when I look back, I left a couple of companies cold turkey without in a way where the employer and they weren't very happy with the way I left. And looking
Sure.
back, I feel bad about it. And definitely if I have a chance to do it again, I'll do it in a better way, and those were, teenage years and all that, but how important is it that, when you leave it, you leave at good terms? Is that important?
For me, yeah, I would say so. What happened in my particular role was that at that time we had moved into more of an operational situation instead of a startup situation. And an operational company and a startup company, they behave very differently. And I was still of a mind that I wanted to do startups. So, a friend of mine had a startup. They needed a co-founder. So I moved and did that for and actually did that kind of serially a few times in a row afterward. But now I feel like I'm a little older. I've done the startup thing. I had an exit, so I've been there, done that. I want to come back and see how I can help Wego. I really like the people there. I still have stock from the old days, so I'd like to look after it, and that was what brought me back, and that was sort of why I left. But yeah, I think it is important when the people you're working with are understanding to try and leave on as best of terms as you can, especially if you think it's part of your network. Also, Singapore is a small city. It's got millions of people, but you will bump into people very quickly, so you can't burn too many bridges.
Definitely, the tech world is a small world. Everybody knows everybody. Even in Pakistan, we know everybody knows everybody. Yeah, and and it's very interesting that you said when you came back to Wego this time around, and you wanted to bring those startup culture to the already established company, and said you talked about flat hierarchy, and it's very it's very interesting. I think it's very conducive to growth when you have that flat hierarchy. Everybody feels they are sort of equal, and and that gives a boost to a lot of creative and high talented people. Now let's talk a little about when you left Wego for first time and you worked on your own startups. Talk a little about your learning that you did there, and when you were navigating that technology space on those startups. What were the high level learning points that you learned and that you want to share with the listeners of this podcast?
Sure. Well, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the kind of people that you want to found a company with. You learn to have a pretty good idea of the kind of people who will be successful at it. And so, what I learned is I want to be a CTO, not a CEO. They are very different roles, and those CEO people are driven like you wouldn't believe. It's really impressive. And I see that I really enjoyed playing with the technology. It's to me, it's not just management. Actually, the early days of a startup, when you're one of two or three or four, you're very involved hands-on the tech. And so that's something that I don't get as much opportunity to do now at Wego as a larger company. So, that was very interesting and fun to me, and it contributed to a lot of learning because I went from Wego, where I left as management, and I went to more, I have to figure out this architecture. I have to solve this problem today. I have to scale. So you learn how to do a lot of things on the fly, and you learn who you want to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, and talk about your Zumata, the startup that you did right before rejoining Wego in 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
You tried to build a chat box, and for traveling industry. Talk about that product and how successful you were there, and what are the challenges when you try to build a chat box?
Oh gosh. Okay. So Zumata was originally hotel B2B booking, and we came into chatbots it wasn't a full pivot. We're still doing the hotel booking at the time. And we moved into chatbots, and I did some, AI talks for IBM with Watson and things like that. But basically we were trying to make customer service and booking bots for the travel industry. And there were a lot of very cool technologies out there from Google, Wit.ai and things like that for building chatbots. It was really there was a surge of chatbot building activity at that time. I think we found out that there was a lot of demand for it. It was tricky though. I mean, as far as the execution goes, as far as making money off it, that part of the question, it was a bit like web consulting. You could make money off of a job here or a job there, but it was difficult to scale. That was the hard part. There were already tools out there that did the sort of scalable part of it. But at some point, you have to sit down and figure out what your particular use case is, and your user is going to say, what the answers should be. And a lot of that takes data entry and ideating about how that happens. And it's not automatic. The chatbots are by no means automatic yet. And so that is like building a website for somebody. It's a lot of talking to them, and a lot of companies are surprised at how much they have to work with you to get the chatbot to work properly. They think it's like a website. Just build me a website, and it doesn't work like that. It's very involved process back and forth.
Okay, I will, because a lot of listeners of our podcast are engineering guys, and I believe engineering is very important to the startup. I'm the sort of guy, just like you said, I need to be coding every day to keep my sanity. I love coding and the challenges that it brings. And, and related to that, over the 20 years, the first thing that, sort of, really surprised me that, here is a guy who has decades of experience at the senior positions, and he is very interested and very available and very interactive to talk to a guy like me on a podcast, and very happy to share. That was the first thing that stood out. And the second thing is, you've been doing it for decades. And what's the secret? Are you like learning new language, new technologies every year? Or do you take courses? Do you learn by hands-on experience? How do you keep that knowledge fresh? Because in technology, every few years, there's a new technology, there's a new framework, there's a new language. How do you keep up with all of this?
Oh, it's a lot of different things. It's Hacker News, it's Reddit. I learn when the people on my team come up with new technologies, I'll listen to their presentations. I look at the architectures they put together. Oftentimes, I'll give them feedback on various levels of scalability, experience I've had with doing things in certain ways. But I just love tech. I've never really lost that. I enjoy reading about how the new languages work. I enjoy, tinkering with myself. I took a sabbatical 4 or 5 years ago and just learned Objective-C, and tried to write my own game, and it didn't end up that well, after 6 months, but I learned Objective-C, and it was a lot of fun. And when I get the chance to have some downtime from the management, I like to play around with a bit of code. But yeah, it's mostly watching the engineers bringing ideas. They want to do a pilot project, and I get as excited as they do.
So
That's really
if there is a fresh graduate or a student at a technology university doing learning computer science, and he's interested in backend engineering or any type of engineering, what are the technologies that you think are important and are going to be important in the next 4 or 5 years in the future? What are the technologies that these guys should check out?
Okay, so I mean, to be very specific, the kind of things we're looking for, I like Golang, I like Elixir. We still have a lot of languages that are floating around in our code. We have, Java and Node and things like this. But I think learning some of the highly scalable, languages that are really great at threading, that's something you really want to look into. Do something as a hobbyist. We often see that people have, in school they've worked on these languages, but I'd like to see everyone do some kind of a project on their own in a very modern, recent language. And if you can come to the table and talk about that, it's really interesting to hire folks like that. When we do our hiring, we give people a little test, and you can solve it in any language you want, but it's more about the choices you make when you're solving it. You really want to impress us, do it in a language you don't know, or you want to learn, like Golang or Elixir, and we love to see that.
On that, when I was a student, and and for a lot of students, the first languages that are on your face, that are talked about in courses in computer science departments are, Python, C++,
yes,
Node.js, Swift, Java, and and you will find students who know one or few of these languages.
Yes.
But at university, you don't have, like, I didn't have those opportunities where I could see what Golang is about, what Elixir is about.
Neither did I. How do you do that? You have to do it as a hobbyist. You have to do it on your own. The schools will only teach you what's on their curriculum. And as you and I well know, some of those languages are, when I was in school, we had COBOL, which, yes, you could probably still find something running on that. But, we had COBOL, Pascal, C, a little bit of C++ in those days. I do feel like if you can learn a language, you can learn another language. So many, it's so much easier than learning a spoken language to me, to take one language and just figure out how you need to move on to the next. We don't turn away people who learn all the standard languages, but so I love to see when on your own, you go into GitHub and create your own little project on a new language. So
on that note, if you are designing curriculum for a computer science department of a university, what languages you would want your students to be exposed to?
Okay. So when I was in school, we had some language survey courses where you went through 5 or 6 languages in a semester. More things like that, because there are a lot of languages out there that function in many, many different ways. Right now, if I was teaching people, I would probably focus on things like Golang, Elixir, ones that were, because Golang was created to get engineers up to speed quickly within Google. So it's not a bad teaching language. Python, also a very good language. I actually worked at a school for a while. That was probably on my LinkedIn. And I taught Python classes. So Python's a great language for, data analytics and things like that. I'm not sure I would make a production ready website out of it, but some people may disagree. But you have to have a sampling of languages that are specific tools for specific problems.
Okay, this is like interesting for me, because the other day another experienced guy was mentioning that Golang is the language for really critical, efficient backends. Why is Golang and Elixir considered to be the go-to backend languages when you are building large scale products and services? talk a little about that, because I really want the guys who are, who want to up their game. I really want them to know that these languages are important because of.
Yes. Okay. So for me, my attraction to Golang and Elixir is really about the threading and the sheer speed of execution of these things without going to C or C++, which I find, back from my day when those languages were out there. I mean, they've evolved quite a bit, but it was, I found them difficult to learn and difficult to maintain. Golang and Elixir don't have those kind of vulnerabilities because they're comparatively recent languages. The reason I'm so focused on speed is because I've been working in this space where I mentioned the number of APIs we're working with before. It's a massive, truly massive amount of text processing, massive amount of activity, asynchronous activity going on. You can't get by with something like Node or Python, or, it's got to be, it's got to be close to a compiled language's speed, if not compiled, to just get through that sheer amount of information without, costing too much money or taking too much time. So for the problems we're solving, those are the kind of languages I like to see. But for programming, for enjoyment, you've got Ruby out there. If you want things that are bulletproof, you've got Rust. If you want to program for crypto, there's languages for that. It's always the right tool for the job. So for the jobs that I've usually had, it's those couple languages.
Yeah, very interesting. And over the years, you've had the opportunity to work closely with Pakistani engineers. Talk about the impact they've had on Wego, the Pakistani engineers, including Yasser Bashir and others.
Yep.
Talk about the strengths that you saw
Yep.
in those people.
Okay, so a bit of a backgrounder story. The team of Pakistani mobile guys we have all generally came from the gaming space, and I have some background in that from a while back, and they had this experience in the gaming space roughly at the same time that Wego was looking to go mobile first, and so they came in, and that mobile first was not too far off from the time that we started making our moves into the Middle East. So they had, the impact on Wego was very outsized. It was they were all superior engineers. They put out a superior product, and it captured the market there because we were, the app was so easy to use, and such a great experience for people. And we were putting out all kinds of features for the local market there. Prayer times and all sorts of neat things that they built. And so the team, they also had worked together. Many of them had worked together before, our classmates. And so it's like having a sports team. They know how to work together well. They're sharp. We've been, sort of endlessly happy with the guys. To have this opportunity to open up and find more people is brilliant. Speaking more about Asan and things like that, Asan's kind of he's a polyglot. He loves different languages. He loves technology. Brilliant engineer, and he's a huge help to the team. So different perspectives. We have mobile front end guys. We have infrastructure guys, and they really care about the product too. So. Excellent effect on the team.
And I have to thank Yasser Bashir for making this podcast happen and to make that connection with Gary. So thank you very much, Yasser. And I really look forward to have you on the podcast as well.
I know a bit about you from what Asan said, but these days, are you still doing both entrepreneurship and TechStory? I mean, what are your current projects? I'm quite curious.
Yeah. So, I am, I have a very, sort of eclectic background in the sense that, I've been all over the place. I was at university with Aston. We were batchmates, and my major was mathematics. I wanted to, and those days I wanted to do mathematics. And, after first year, I realized, I have to, I didn't like the mathematics at the university. So I started doing computer science courses, and,
right.
and then I liked them enough, but I wasn't, so very deep into it. But, after that, I was hired at software houses. And then one thing led to the other. I made an account on Upwork, and a few guys from Canada, they hired me, and they gave me responsibility and sort of I worked there with them for 3-4 years, to the extent that I was working on their ad tech product, and they sort of gave me the leeway and the responsibility to hire people in Lahore.
Yeah.
So in Pakistan. So, our play was to hire, university students who would not be very expensive. They would do this as a part-time job. So I built, 14, 15, team of 14, 15 people, and, we delivered that product. And through that experience, I realized, I can really make a large impact, doing software projects. So, and at the same time, I wanted to do my thing of my own. And then, I liked mobile apps, and, they were emerging back then in 2015. They were relatively new to Pakistan. There wasn't much adoption. So, I started, making stock market apps, and I hired a team to make it. And then, after that, I realized, it's very expensive. So I sort of realized, if I will learn to do programming, so mobile app, and, I won't have to spend a lot of money managing it. And, it could be something I could see that as a full-fledged career in the future. So, that's how I started. That's how I started doing programming and Swift in Node.js, and, and then I stumbled upon Firebase, and I started making mobile app. And, one thing led to the other. And, and then, I was really struggling with the finances, and, because I was building those things, and I wasn't, my apps weren't making much money. And that time I, started raising funding from family and friends. And, then I, through that sort of whole challenges, I, started thinking a lot deeply about, thinking about this whole startup ecosystem. I would I would try to talk to, to the people who really know, in sort of trying to, get them to pay attention on my work and, give me some money as well. I was, contacting these venture capital funds and, other people. And I was really disappointed in that, the help was not coming. There were a few people who helped me, and, and that's when I started to realize, I have to do something about people like me who are in those positions, who are trying to do things, who are really passionate, who are, burning all the calories and working day and night to try to build those companies. And I have to do something to, build knowledge and discussions for those people. And then also, democratize those discussions. And during that process, when I was, going through all that, soul searching and reading and all that, the internet really started to boom here, around 2018, 2019. Before that, nobody would pay attention to my work. But, somewhere around 2019, I started getting a lot of queries every month, from people and small companies. Amir, you've been doing mobile apps. Can you help build our app?
Right.
Can you, and through that moment, I realized, this is big thing. I realized, the work I put in, it's going to pay a lot of dividend in future. So, and during those moments, I realized, after a lot of those years I've been struggling, they're not going to go waste, and I grew into confidence, and, and I sort of, had newfound faith in my work. And during that time, the customers of my app, they started paying me, they started, buying the in-app purchases, and I was cash flow positive, sort of, the money wasn't the biggest problem of mine. And then, I was approached by one of the best universities in Pakistan, LUMS. They said, you've been teaching, you've been making mobile apps. We want an applied guy like you to come and teach a course.
Nice. Yeah.
And now I teach a course of mobile app development. And then I wanted, I started listening podcasts, and I realized this is a very powerful tool for building knowledge and, having those discussions. And then it became a passion of mine to, do those discussions. And
Right.
and that's how it's a fixed podcast. I do one podcast every week, and I try
Mhm.
to be true to my work in that I do research on a person. I spend a few days
Right.
trying to research and try to bring in, create new knowledge, in a sense, bring in new discussions,
Yes.
and with the hope that there will be some Amir Siddiq out there, someone
Mhm.
like me, who
Mhm.
wants to do big things, wants to
Yep.
have an impact, but doesn't have that information, doesn't have those avenues to learn more, to reach out to people like Gary and other people, and
Yep.
now it's my policy. My LinkedIn is open. If there is any guy who's
Yep.
contacting me, I try to stop everything and reply that guy,
Right.
so that I'm thinking, it's me a few years ago when
Yeah.
nobody replied, replied to me,
Right.
sort of.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of personal experience and personal, in the sense that, I have always tried to, make the best out of the situations in terms of, how can I fix things? How can I contribute?
Right. 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 The
So
the whole going as a teacher for an applied subject, that's brilliant. That was I enjoyed. I spent about a year or so with Upcode teaching, and I really enjoyed the heck out of it. It was a lot of fun. Uh, I would like to go back to, maybe when I retire, I go go back and teach a bit of languages on the side.
yeah, that's the fun of technology, that you have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things. You can build apps, you
Yeah.
can manage apps, you can do consultancy, you can teach. You're always very relevant. And
Hmm.
that's one thing I try to tell my students. So I have got like 22 students who are eager to,
Hmm.
you know and it's very interesting. I have been saying it to everyone that, all these 22 students, and interesting thing is that they all have a mobile app idea that they want to try, and
Yep.
through doing that course, they are ready. So in that sense, I see a blossoming of opportunities. Everyone has woken up to the
Yep.
realization that the future is tech.
Yep. Yep. That's really neat. And if any of them are looking for work once they graduate, let me know. We
Yeah,
will take a
definitely.
look.
But 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 one thing, they're learning Flutter, Dart, and to
Yeah.
build hybrid apps. And
Yeah.
and 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 that's good for startups doing small
Yep.
apps. But I'm not sure how good that will be for your engineering teams. I'm not too sure.
It's a, we have that debate inside the company because right now we have we write native apps, and I can see, because our team is, we have a decent sized mobile team, but it's not enough for me to devote engineers to every single product we have from the mobile team, which is what I'd like to be able to do. Because every time I have to do it, I have to pair up one iOS guy, one Android guy. So these frameworks that allow you to write once and run anywhere they're very attractive. So it may be in our future. I think it's great that people learn them, because eventually they will be frankly good enough to be, you won't need native apps potentially.
To me, it is like, a stepping stone, a starting point for people who have no background in computer science.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
most of my students, they are, in yesterday's class, I started from what is a variable and what is a constant. So this is
Yep.
how
Yep.
we start, and in 3 months time, I want them to, at the end of the course, be able to make a small app of a few screens.
Right. Yep. Yep. Definitely doable with those kind of frameworks. Yeah. Yeah. I spent a
So,
little bit of time in, have you ever heard of Cocos? Cocos
no.
2D, Cocos 3D. Oh, back from the gaming. That was one of the things I learned when I was writing Objective C. Learned how to make little games on the iOS phones. A lot of fun.
Yeah,
Might
definitely.
be worth
Like,
showing them how those work too.
yeah, there are like 3, 4 students of mine who want to make who wants to make games. So
Okay.
I don't have any background in making games, but I have brought in. I'm talking to a couple of game developers who and to come and give the guest talk during my course. It's taught online and on Zoom, and they can do that. So one last question that I want to really ask you is,
Mhm.
talk about the challenges, engineering challenges, as a CTO, managing the engineering talent and delivering that great engineering products? What are the modern challenges that you are facing nowadays?
Right now, some of the biggest challenges. So I would say two things. One is retention and getting people. And the second one is really sort of maintaining and fostering an engineering culture, so that I think they follow each other. If you create a good engineering culture where everybody is happy to suggest things, they're working on things they enjoy, they're having an effect on the company, not just a cog in a wheel, then that kind of engineering culture will improve your retention. They are the two biggest problems I have right now, because you want to help the engineers who are siloed into products that are using older languages or technology. I don't want you to get stifled because you've only been using Java for the last 5 years or something like that. So we need to figure out ways to create opportunities for those engineers to do new things, work on other products, and yeah, it's all about getting people excited, because I think if I can get the engineers excited, then they'll stay longer because they see the opportunities. They do need to see the career path as well. That is another part of retention that we need to build out in our company. It's in a startup where you're very flat. Sometimes they're not so much of a path, because it's like, I'm an engineer here, or I'm a lead here, or I'm the CTO. It can be extremely flat. So it's not like working in a big company like IBM, where there's probably 50 layers of management over you, and you can see your next 10 years if you want. So just making all those things clear to engineers, and hiring, keeping the best people. Those are the biggest challenges. The technology will flow from having good people.
It's very interesting. You talked about the flat model and the IBM sort of model, where you have a lot of layers.
Yeah.
But what do you think the future of the work will look like? Because from my personal perspective is, I like things flat. I like to be respected. I like to be valued. I don't care if I am an engineer and there's a CTO. That's my personal perspective.
Yeah.
What do you think? What is the Generation Z, the new people that are coming? What do they want? What do they value? Where do they see retention? And what will the future of work look like? Will we see a lot of hierarchy, or will we see a lot of flat? What is the research saying? What is your experience saying?
Yeah. So I can't speak to necessarily what the research is saying, but in my personal experience, I see more and more engineers who want to have an effect. They want to be able to see that what they're working on shows up on a user's screen, that they're making a difference. I have interviewed a number lately leaving big companies saying, I was a cog in the wheel, and here I see I'm going to be working on something that people are going to see a new version of every week, and it's going to have my new section or whatever. As far as how to organize teams to work that way, I've been lately thinking cross-functional teams is maybe a better way to go than just pure silos. We've been, this stuff is cyclical. Sometimes when you go one way, you say, well, grass is greener, maybe it'll be better the other way. But having cross-functional teams where we put enough into that product to where they can do all their own functions. They've got front-end people, mobile, back-end, infra, design, product managers and owners who can make decisions on commercials and things like that, and let them run with it is a lot of fun. And I think it's exciting for the team members because they feel like they're all pulling in the same direction. They're not context switching like when you're a services organization where you have to respond to 50 different customers in the company and you have to prioritize it. It's trickier than if you're working on just one thing. You don't have to context switch. You know what it takes to get things done.
Yeah, and one point that you made, that you said that if a guy has been working on one language for 5 years, you still want them to come and have that opportunity to learn on the job.
Yeah.
So when that happens, it could be like a guy is learning and he takes like 3-4 months to come up to speed, and in that sense, it's a bit of wastage of your the money that you're spending on that guy. So how do you deal with that? How much of a time spent on coming up to speed is acceptable and how much is not? How do you deal with that sort of loss of efficiency?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you measure it. To me, if I've got a person that is bright and they're learning and this is keeping them happy and productive, and it takes them, a few weeks to a month or two to get really proficient with the language, I think that'll pay off in the end. I mean, it may not pay off today, may slow things a little bit down today, but it fosters an engineering culture. And in a couple of months, I have an engineer who's learned a new skill and brings something new to the table. Yeah, I try not to focus too much on short-term timelines, probably to the chagrin of the people who rely on some things from me. But I think the long term is really I'm a firm believer in people. Happy people make good products.
Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is help me understand Wego as a company in terms of the investors and the founders. Is it a
Oh,
startup or is it a company run by corporations or venture capital companies? Are the founders still involved in the company, or are they sitting behind in their boardrooms and managing other companies as well? What's the structure like?
right. So the company was founded by a couple of guys, Craig Hewitt and Ross Veach, and Ross is super involved with the company to this day. The founders have not taken a backseat to any kind of investors or anything like that. We cooperate with them. We take bridging money if we need it. We take growth money if we need it. But Ross is he's like the Elon Musk of in terms of how he operates. He's very interested in how things work. He is very knowledgeable about the product and the space. You can see he does all kinds of speaking on the subject and consults on a basis in the Middle East, often with some high profile people on how travel is going. So they're very, very involved, and that excites me too. I think if it was a big faceless corporation and all it did was raise money, I wouldn't be inclined to work there. I would probably just retire. It's a joy to work with people who care so much about the product and what they're doing.
So,
So
so
it
are,
still
are
feels
you
like an early startup.
are you profitable, or if you are, how long have you been profitable, and how important it is to definitely if you are moving to Lahore, you have money somewhere stashed that you're spending here. So
Right.
how talk a little about the profitability.
So pre-COVID, we were profitable and decently so. And our CEO had mentioned that an IPO was in our future, and at that point it was probably a couple years. COVID hit us pretty hard. Obviously, we're still somewhere, I would guess, between 25 and 40% of our normal revenues and profits. And so we're getting back to profitability. It'll come back this year. And probably we'll come out on the other side of it better, because during COVID, we kind of doubled down on product. We rolled out 3 or 4 new ones. So when travel comes back, and it'll come back with a bang, we expect, with pent up demand. I think everybody wants to get out of where they are as soon as they
Definitely,
can safely.
definitely.
We're going to be there with bells on, ready for the demand. And so I think we'll be back to, my guess is we'll be back to profitability sometime this year. It's a little hard to peg when, still on, COVID, how fast we can chase it away. But yeah, we'll be back there
So,
pretty soon. And then I
so
think,
I
the
want
IPO is probably down the road, but
So on that note, I want all the fussy people to pay attention that Wego has been doing business for last 15 years, and they
yep.
are just becoming profitable. So, all those
Yeah.
fussy people who keep, all those fussy people who keep asking startup founders, that question, that really nauseating question, are you profitable yet? Are you
Yeah.
profitable
Yeah.
yet? To pay real attention that, this is how real companies operate. It
Yeah.
can take
We have a
years.
business model. We do have a business model that is profitable. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of
It's nice to be able to.
a lot of people don't pay attention to the fact that Amazon has not been profitable for a couple of decades, and Facebook was
I
started in 2004 and it IPO'd around 2012, 2013, and that's when they started becoming profitable
Yes.
in yearly terms. It
Yeah.
a lot of blood and sweat goes into startups, and it's in that sense you have to be forward looking. rather
Yeah.
than how much you have how much you have made so far. It's all about potential and the future forecast and what you can potentially do with that company.
Yes, yeah. I'm proud to say that Wego is profitable. It is profitable through business operations. We are not, as some companies are, our primary business is not fundraising. So and we have an actual business, and we did take some we did take some bridging funding last year. So even though we're actually quite close to being profitable again, we do have runway to grow. So, and I think most of the travel companies out there raised money during COVID, for that purpose. But a lot of them cut staff at the same time, and we didn't. We felt like keeping the people we had and coming out stronger on the other side.
Is there something that you want to talk about? Bring, put your message across. There's some topic that you want to talk about. We can,
No, I mean, you asked really good questions that are really relevant. I think the key points for us were we wanted to let people know the operation is opening there. We are already interviewing. We will probably be offering this week to the first few people. Yeah, I'm just looking to hire and meet some great engineers. And as I mentioned before, I start up a fresher pipeline as well, because I really believe that we've had Wego's had a lot of people who were interns who went on to be high-level staff, believe it or not, and in short periods of time, like 3-4 years. So sometimes you get diamonds in the rough that way, and it's you could either try and find them online, or you can teach them.
Yeah, definitely. In Lahore, Assam definitely knows there are a couple of universities that you should look at. There's LUMS, there is there is FAST, and there is a guy, Yasser Bashir, who runs RBSoft. He's done some research on which universities are producing best computer science. Have you seen those graphics?
I haven't seen that one, but Asan is, whenever we get a CV, he looks, oh, that's LUMS. They're good. They're like, it's like the Harvard of.
Yeah, I'll send you that research. Yasser Bashir, and he's also a LUMS graduate who started that big software house company, and he's done a big research, and the result is the best in Pakistan is LUMS, and then there is ITU, then there is FAST, and then there is Punjab University IT. And definitely you will get a lot of talent, raw talent, and and $1,000 salary is considered a really good salary for a starting graduate. And you cannot get this value for money anywhere in the world.
Right. Yep. It's a great way to sort of test people out and to teach people, because everybody you come out of university, you don't have the basis at that point to really function yet as an engineer. You have to learn it at the beginning, and so happy to teach people that.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm really happy that you're coming to Lahore, and Lahore is a city I was born and raised, and I love it. If you need any help about Lahore, if you need to do anything here, do any research, any help with the community, with the tech community, I'll be happy to help wherever I can.
Well, I look forward to visiting too when COVID is over. I try to get to all the offices, and this sounds pretty cool. Never been to Pakistan, love to go. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll be happy to help.
I heard it's a nice part of town too, right? Is it where they put this off?
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best,
Okay, great.
Best restaurant. It's the main downtown of Lahore, where historically the richest, the affluent and the nicest restaurants, nicest buildings. It's the most expensive real estate in Lahore, in this area.
Okay. We're if we want to attract good people, it's always good to have one additional point in our favor, and that's that we're in a good location. So
yeah, most of the startups have been here, and in this location, Gulberg is like historically it has long history. Like the oldest families of Lahore have been living here for centuries, and the food is great, the people are lovely, and you'll have a great time here. I'm sure, and you'll be proud of you'll be proud of your decision one day.
Great, great. Yeah, I can't wait to get there. I can't wait for travel to come back for so many reasons.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So Gary, thank you very much.
No, I
Really
appreciate it. Pleasure's
honored.
all mine.
And thank you
Great.
very much,
Look forward
Gary.
to it then. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for your time.